In this episode, we're going to talk about the difference in terms of the tools and products that we use when it comes to mobile detailing versus shop detailing. Now, this is going to be different because on the other episodes, I talked about the pros and cons between mobile and shop, but this one's specifically talking about the tools and products that we use and how they differ. And if you are looking to start your detailing business, you can click the link down below and download the 8 services guide that I have. In that guide, it goes over the services you can offer, the price range you can offer them at, what's included in each service, and just some general information about the services. So if you're just getting started, if you need help figuring out what services to offer, click the link down below and download it. All right, and welcome back to another episode. Let's break down the difference in terms of tools and products on shop detailing versus mobile detailing. Now this is also going to differ based on the size of your mobile unit as well, right? If you're detailing out of a Ford Ranger, like out of the bed is different than a Ford Ranger with a small trailer versus if you have a, Chevy 2500, keep that in mind. So one is going to be the air compressor. So in the mobile unit, we had the rigid dual air compressors, that orange one. I think it's like $240, I believe. Now, in the shop, we've gone through a 24-gallon DeWalt, a 27-gallon, I forget what brand that is, that we have, Cobalt, and then we have a California air compressor. Now, the California air compressor, it's like a 17-gallon. It's pretty small, so that could, like, if we wanted to, that one could have easily fit in the mobile van as well in our Ram ProMaster. We just didn't. So like you could run a bigger air compressor or a bigger anything in your van if you have the space and you can fit it in there. So with that one, we definitely could. Now with the larger size ones, I probably wouldn't run that one in the mobile van. It's too big, and then not only that, but the noise, because then you're running the air compressor, the air hose, and then the generator. Like that's a lot of noise coming out of the mobile van, and then depending where you're working at or what time, whatever, that might be quite a bit of noise. So that is a difference because the bigger the tank, depending on the CFM and all that, but with the mobile air compressor, the smaller one, it would turn, and there's a difference because if you have like the Craftsman pancake one, that one will always be turned on. Like it's always refilling because like it's such a small tank that you blow out one door panel, it's going to kick on because it needs a refill. So the rigid, it wasn't to that degree, but it definitely would stay on because like we would use it quite heavily. Sometimes we would run 2 air hoses out of it, but because of the size, 95% of the time we'd keep it to running 1 air hose. Whereas at the shop, we can have 2 air hoses going at the same time, full strength. It's still going to turn on because we're using quite a bit of air, but because we're at a shop, it's a bigger tank. Like it works a lot better. So one thing is the air compressor is, one, the size of it, and then 2, we're able to run 2 hoses off at the shop instead of 1 hose at the on the mobile unit. Now again, you could still run 2 hoses. It's going to keep on turning on. You have to kind of ration how much air you use. That way, like, at the shop, we can kind of hold the trigger down for a lot longer because it's just a bigger tank versus on the mobile unit. You want to ration it a little more. That way it's not always turning on and you're not always trying to waiting for the air to fill up. So that's definitely a difference, especially if you're doing interiors, like that makes a difference there. Next one up here is the generator. Okay, so with the generator, just having the generator alone, you obviously have to change the oil when that's necessary. You have to make sure it's gassed up. So, always have a tank of gas with you and always filling it up. Or whenever you go and pump gas in your van, you'll fill up the generator as well. And then on top of that, so that's just the maintenance. And then obviously you have to purchase it and like store it somewhere in your van. And look, like if you want to run bigger equipment or more equipment, you need a bigger generator. Like the first generator that I had was the Honda 2000, right? It was great to have a generator. I was like, oh man, I can power my own machines now. The problem though is that Honda 2000 is not a lot of power, right? Because the 2000 is peak power. I mean, is starting, right? That's peak. I'm sorry, peak. where when you turn it on, like if you turn on the machine, the initial turn on peaks at it can peak up to 2,000 watts. Running watts, it's like 1,600 if I'm not mistaken. So I couldn't run the Aqua Pro Vac and the Aqua Pro steamer at the same time. It would turn off the generator. So that's something you have to keep in mind. If you want to run more equipment or stronger equipment, you need a bigger generator. So if we wanted to run the HP60 Spider, we're not doing that off of a 2,000 generator. If we want to run that massive PE500 that we had, or that we still technically still have, we're not running it off a 2,000 watt. We're not running it off a 3,500 watt generator. We have a 6400 watt generator, I think, from Harbor Freight. You need bigger generator. And if you need a bigger generator to run your bigger equipment, you just need more space. That's just simply how it works. So there's a lot more thought process that goes into running equipment when it comes to your mobile rig. And on top of that, it's the generator noise, like the generator, and then, whatever machines you have running. So like, let's say it might be the generator and then just polishers, right? And, it doesn't sound like much, but if it's a generator and you have one machine going, like, it's not until you turn off the generator and the machines and it's not pitch quiet, but like it's pretty quiet outside, and you're like, oh my God, like all that noise was just me with that generator, right? And then you think about it and you're like, man, hopefully I wasn't annoying all these neighbors, because like, you're just used to like that rumble like that of the generator, and then you have your machine running, and you might have had headphones on, you might not, but like there's been so many times where we're mobile and we're running the extractor and a vacuum and maybe a drill gun or whatever, and we're running machines, right? And then once we're done with the detail, or we're at the point where we can turn off the machines, we turn them off and we're just like, oh my God, like we were making that much noise. Like, dude, I feel like I can think clearly now, because like you turn it off and, we're in a residential neighborhood. And it's like, we were the only ones making all that noise. It's kind of crazy. So it gets exhausting over time. And obviously at a shop, you don't have that issue at all, right? Yeah, obviously you still run the machines, like clearly, but not dealing with a generator is a big deal, because again, like the noise itself makes a difference in terms of like how you detail. You can't even compare those two. Now, next one is the overall setup. Like with mobile detailing, obviously you have to prep everything the day before, the night before, the day of. You have to gas it up, make sure you're taking food and drinks and enough batteries and whatever. Versus at the shop, like, if you're going mobile, right? Let me bring up my notes again. If you're going mobile, again, you have to double check your batteries. If, either you take enough batteries or you take the charger to be able to charge your batteries when you're out in the field. You're taking snacks, water, maybe extra pair of clothes. You are making sure your maybe your water tank's filled up, your pressure washer is working. That like you check all these things, and if you gas up your van, the generator the night before, the next day, the day of, like those are so many steps you take before getting to the customer's location. Whereas with the shop, I mean, if a battery dies, well, that's okay. Like you could just charge it first thing in the morning, or if you have extra ones, like you just grab one, or, you don't worry about gassing anything up or driving through traffic, or like the customers come to you. You have all your equipment there ready at hand. You have a restroom. That's a pretty big deal. But again, I'm not going into the details of like what's the difference between mobile detailing and shop. I already covered that in a few other episodes. But as far as the equipment, like the prep wise, like that's a major difference. That you don't have to go through when you're at a shop. Again, like maybe as far as what problems you can find at the shop is like maybe if you're running all the machines on one outlet, you might trip the breaker. So you, instead of having everything plugged into one, you're going to plug the extractor into this one and the steamer into the other plug, because they're on two different circuits, right? Or maybe like if something happened with a transformer near you and it knocks out your power, maybe that's something that's out of your control that you have to deal with. But aside from that, like it's it's pretty easy going. Now again, like maybe there's like a year ago, 2 years ago, maybe we had a water issue here at the shop where there was no water anywhere, like in the whole facility. as far as all the other units, because an 18-wheeler had ran over the lawn and there was a water pipe right there. So the water was all leaking there. So maybe like a day and a half, we didn't have any water here at all. So like sinks, toilets, all that, like no bueno, couldn't use them. So again, like that's out of my control, but that is something that's like shop specific, right? Because that's like that happened here. Again, they can have, problems that you weren't kind of aware of or thought that could happen. Like that can happen anywhere. So that is something that could happen there. But overall, like the whole setup and everything, it's still so much easier. Now, as far as the machine, like let's say the extractor, right? In the extractor, we had the massive PE 500 specifically because we didn't want to, we didn't want to take the extractor down. Like we didn't want to take the extractor down and then put the extractor back in the van every single time like that. We just did not want to do that. And then secondly, it was annoying having to refill the equipment so much, right? Like when I was using the Aqua Pro Vac, I mean, I think the capacity is like a gallon and something, right? Like not that much. So if I would extract like the back row and floor mats, I'd have to go and refill the water up, right? Like this, like throw the water away and then fill it up again. Now again, it depends on the condition, how many passes, but you get the point. Like you can't hold much water, so you lose a lot of time there. And then when we had the HP60 Spider, much better in terms of capacity. I mean, just everything is better than the Aqua Pro Vac. But I think the gallon size is like, I don't know. It's still not that much though. It was like 2 gallons or 3 gallons maybe, which is still a lot more than the Aqua Pro Vac. But because we were doing 2, 3, 4 cars a day, some of those were interiors, floor, whatever. Like we would still have to dump out the water quite a bit. So then we upgraded to the PE 500 specifically because it's a 5-gallon capacity tank, meaning like that's a lot of water that you can extract without having to refill it. And so there was plenty of days where like we fill up the extractor in the morning and then we don't have to dump out the water until the end of the day, and that saved up so much time. That way, when we were done with one car and go on to the next one, we didn't have to dump out the water. We just reel up all the hoses, put everything in the van, close the door, and then just head out. Like we didn't have to put the extractor back on. We didn't have to dump out any water. We just throw everything in the van, go on to the next location. So that was really good. Now here at the shop, we no longer use the PE 500. So with the PE 500, it has 2 cords. You need one for the vacuum and one for the heater. So that's why we have the much bigger generator in our mobile van as well, because it needed to handle all that power. Like we ran a lot of things through that generator. So it needed 2 cords, right? You need a lot of power, and it just needs power. Whereas here at the shop, we don't run the PE 500 because one, it's much easier to dump out the water and refill the water here at the shop. Duh, right? We have a water hose. We can just dump it out. Like so much easier. So as far as like it taking time, it still takes, depending on the situation of the car or the day, we still refill, but it's not as much of an inconvenience to refill more often here at the shop because obviously we're in control of the shop. The second thing is like we don't want to have to run 2 cords. Like we have to put 1 cord on the left side of the wall and 1 cord on the right side of the wall. And based on where we position the vehicle, sometimes it doesn't reach all the way. So then we have to, we just have to finesse it a little bit more, and we just don't want to do that. So at the shop, we don't run the strongest machine because it's just overkill for what we're doing. And now we still just use the HP60 Spider for all our interior detailing. Like we're going to sell the PE 500 if someone wants it. So that's a big difference as well in terms of the machine that we run. Now, as far as polishers, for mobile detailing, we use the when it came to applying the wax or maybe doing some type of a specific scratch removal, we would use a cordless polisher. Now at the shop, we still use a cordless polisher to like apply wax or sealant, but again, it's far easier to use cords because like we basically have a electrical reel at every corner of the vehicle. So if we need to use it on the front driver's side area, there's a reel right there. If we need to go to the passenger rear quarter panel, there's a reel there. So it's like it's much easier to navigate and like move the things around because it's at a shop. It's much easier. It's much easier to set up your workstation for efficiency. Like in the as a mobile unit, I mean, you're at the mercy of your location, right? Like maybe you're in a nice driveway with plenty of space and no one's in your way, those are fine. But then other times you might be at a driveway that's very narrow and a very narrow street, and you can't really open the door all the way, and you kind of gotta like work your way through a vehicle, and like maybe the cord gets stuck. It's mobile detailing is so much different. Like you go through a lot more problems and a lot more headaches to get the job done. But for the most part, I want to say as far as equipment goes, that's basically it. Again, like if you have like the Aqua Pro steamer, that had no issue running through running on our generator, so there's no difference there. Everything else polishing wise, like it's all the same. Like there's no major difference in terms of that I can think of with all the other machines. Because even with like the cordless drills that we have to agitate the carpet and such, we still use those. There's nothing that changed with that. Aside from that, there's not much else. I mean, the reason why we did an ozone treatment once as a mobile detailer, and that's the only one we did because we were like, yeah, this should not be a mobile job because like it's supposed to run for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. What are we gonna do during that time? Like, do we leave or how do we, like if it rains? So we're like, yeah, no, this is not gonna be done. Mobile jobs, we're gonna do that specifically at shops because like it needs to be in a controlled environment. We need to run it for 2, 3, 4 hours. We need to air it out, inspect it, maybe run it again. So like we're like, yeah, no, this is gonna be shop based. So I guess that is one for sure. That definitely is like we switched that up entirely. But I also know of detailers that do ozone treatments mobile and they just leave it there. Again, I don't really agree with that. I wouldn't do that. There's liability there. But I've also seen detailers do that as well. So okay, I'll go ahead and end it right there. Hopefully that gave you some insights into the difference between the two. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and I'll talk to you on the next one.